Once again, welcome to our channel, which goes by the name of Mr. Tinga Tinga Africana. And today on this video, we are going to deal with analysis and review of the title piece Things Fall Apart by CHINUA ACHEBE, which was first published in 1958. And the very introductory things which I would like to tell you before going to the analysis and review of this book is the type of work, which is novel, and the genre of this particular novel, it is post-colonial critic tragedy. And the primary language which has been used to write this book, it is English language, and the time setting of this book, it is 1890s, years before colonialism. The physical setting of the book, it is lower Nigerian villages, which particularly may be named as Igwedo and Mbata. I can tell you that Igwedo, it is the village which our main character Okonko he is residing, and Mbata is the village which he went to live after being told to go in exile for 7 years as he killed a 6-year boy who was of his clansman. And starting with the book review direct, we may start with the first chapter. As you can see in this chapter, we are being introduced to Okonko, who is the main character who lives in Igwedo, and which is known to be one among the 9 connected villages. And unlike his father, Okonko is such a hardworking man and a successful wrestler, as he brought Hannah to his village by defeating Amalinze, who was nicknamed a cat after being unbeaten for 7 consecutive years. The thing which I can tell you about Okonko as we pass through this chapter, it is that Okonko has distinguished himself from his father's reputation, who is known as Unoka, who was always borrowing and losing money. Though he had a gift for and love of language and was a very skilled flute player, but Okonko was not proud of him anyhow. So if we go to chapter 2, you can see one night the town crier rings the organ, or gong can be said as gong, and requests that all the clansmen gather in the market in the morning. And at the gathering, Ogbuefu Ezeudu, a noted orator, announced that someone from the village of Mbaino murdered the wife of Omwefia tribesmen. After their meeting, they suggested that the Mbaino village shall pay a fine that shall give they shall give the Omwefia village 1 virgin girl and a young man, or else they shall go into war. And to avoid war, as Mbaino village fears Omwefia, which had good reputation when coming onto war, they give them their wish, as they had given them 1 virgin girl and 1 boy who shall be known as Ikemefuna. And we can see Ikemefuna is given to Okonko to be taken care of. If you go direct into chapter 3, you can see here we are being told more about Okonko's life, who is rich as he is a hard worker. And you can see like he supports all 3 wives together with 8 children he have, and each wife has her own hut and a barn full of yams. You can see that Okonko fears weakness and is very afraid of dying a shameful death like his father, who had left nothing to the family but debts to be paid. And so he punishes his son Nyoe constantly, as he finds him to be lazy. Though very young, you can see this Nyoe to be, as is considered to be successful than all the clansmen as a warrior and a farmer. and a family provider, he began his journey by asking the wealthy clansman. This is how he became successful. This is how he had started his journey, his successful life. So he went to Nwakibie to give him 400 seed yams to start a farm, but for Nwakibie admires Okonkwo so much, he gave him 800, and the other friend of him also gave him 400 of seed yams. But because of the droughts, he managed to keep just 1/3 of all his harvest in particular year. You can see the next year, as the Resia farmers avoided planting the yams so as to escape the grave losses, Okonkwo persuaded, and so he had profound harvest that year, and that marked his successful life. You can see, like, when you go on with the book in chapter 4, you can see as Ikemefuna was given to Okonkwo to be kept. At first days he was very afraid, but then he gets used to life and became very famous with Okonkwo's children, and started to call Okonkwo father. You see, as he became like an elder brother to Nyoe and such skilled and hardworking, Okonkwo found himself so much, found himself loving him so much, but kept hiding, as he considered showing love to be weakness. You can see, like, Okonkwo is afraid of showing his affection to his children or to anyone, just because he considers showing affection to be weakness. And during the week of peace, you can see Okonkwo broke the rule of it by beating his youngest wife, who had left home and gone to braid her hair without cooking dinner. So by this action, you can see Okonkwo had broken the rule of the peace week. So he was given some fine to pay and respected by paying and repented his mistakes. So Okonkwo is very, he others his traditions very much, as one was given some fine to pay as he had broken some of the rules. He paid without confrontation. After a week of peace, the villagers started to prepare their farms for planting their yams. Ikemefuna settle in Okonkwo's household and share his large stock of folktales with the other family members. And you see, by this, he had brought a lot of new folktales to this new village of his residing. In chapter 5 and 6, you can see some cultural differences among Africans are being brought up by Achebe, who is the author of this book, just to reveal that Africa is not one single thing as Western people view it. This is solely done by the unique folktales brought by Ikemefuna of different tribe into Igbo tribe of Okonkwo. And in chapter 7 and 8, you can see, after 3 years with Okonkwo's family, Ogbuefu Ezendu comes and tells Okonkwo that Ikemefuna shall be killed as the gods has decreed. So after 3 years of Ikemefuna living in Okonkwo's family, now Ezeudu has come to tell Okonkwo that the son shall be killed. And he warned Okonkwo not to participate on the killing because Ikemefuna is calling him and regarding him to be his father. Okonkwo lies to Ikemefuna that they will be taking him back to his home village, and we can see Ikemefuna weeps somehow, just because he have already been used to this family and he had already loved it so much. On their way, one man of Omwefia attacks Ikemefuna with a machete, and Okonkwo finishes him as the boy went to him to ask for help, as after being clashed with the machete, something which he was told not to do by Ezeudu. In chapter 8, we can see when these people had already gotten home, Okonkwo fails even to fall asleep, just as he can't avoid thinking of what had happened. On the other day, we can see like he visits his friends who is known as Obiereka, who his daughter is about to be married. On the other part, while Okonkwo was degrading feminine and avoided to show his affection toward many things, we can see someone like Obiereka shows he's affectionate, but his manliness is not being questioned. For example, Obiereka questioned about some bad traditional practices, and no one lowers his manliness and no one questions his thinking capabilities. And when we go directly to chapter 13, we can see Ezeudu, the chief priest of the village, dies, and as he was a good hunter, at his funeral people beat drums and the other play with guns heroically. So you can see while on the occasion, Okonkwo shot Ezeudu's son, who aged 6 years, accidentally. Killing a clansman is a very big crime, and so Okonkwo must atone by taking his family into exile for 7 years. He gathers his valuable things and go as his hut is being burnt and the remaining animals are killed so as to cleanse the village. You see, like he goes to his village, to his mother's village, which is known as Mbanta village, and there Obiereka and there you can see his clansman receives him very good, and you can see Obiereka asks, why shall a man suffer so much for an accidental killing? And then he mourns the deaths of his wife's twins, whom he was forced to throw away, wondering what crime they have committed, those kids. You see, Okonkwo's punishment put emphasis of strong harmonious relationship within the community, so people know that they shall always either live in harmony and also live with good relationship with others. In chapter 14, Okonkwo's uncle, that is Uchedu, and the rest of the kinsmen receive him warmly and help him to start new life. You can see they give him yam seed and they help him to build a hut. And so Obiereka, a good friend of Okonkwo, bring him some money after selling Okonkwo's yams, and he promises to be doing so until Okonkwo's return home. And you can see when we continue to read this, while in Bata, Okonkwo witnesses the massive attack of Christianity upon their culture, and some Africans started to convert to Christianity, something which he opposes very much. In chapter 20, Okonkwo returned back to his village after finishing his 7 years in exile, while already in chapter 15, we are told that his son Noe had already converted to Christianity. So while going back to his home village, he finds that the whites had taken over the village, so Christianity has already expanded, and also people have been subjected into judicial system. So when one commits any mistake, shall be punished according to the law. Mr. Brown, who is known as the leader of the Christianity missionaries, who was somehow less cruel to Africans, managed to live in peace with the Omoifia people and built a hospital and a school. He then persuades the villagers to take their children to school, as he warned them that if they don't, the strangers will later come and rule them. So they answer to the request. You can see in this chapter we are being told Mr. Brown dies from some illness, and so the other person, the other white man who is known as Reverend James Smith, a strict and intolerant man, replaces Mr. Brown. Mr. James demands the utmost obedience to the letter of the Bible and disapproves of Mr. Brown's tolerant and unorthodox policies. On such convert, he causes Enoch to dare to unmask a gugu during the annual ceremony. These people who are in this group known as a gugu, they wear some masks to represent their gods. So, this ceremony was to honor the earth deity. So, unmasking one among the gugu was equivalent to killing an ancestral spirit. So the next day, the Egugu team goes and burn Enochi's compound to the ground. After burning Enochi's house, they then go and burn the church, as they saw it is the cause of all destruction upon culture. Mr. Smith causes a great deal of conflict between the church and the clan, with his refusal to understand and respect their traditional Igbo culture. As you can see, Mr. Smith's attitude encourages Enoch to insult traditional Igbo culture to the extent of unmasking one among the Egugu. Burning of the church causes them imprisonment and a fine. They were required to pay some fine, and they were heavily tortured while in prison. After the villagers had paid the fine, after being told that their leaders would be killed if not so, Okonko and the other elders were released. So during the meeting, just a day after release, some cult messengers interrupted and called off the meeting which was going on. So during the time, Okonko stood up and drove up his machete and killed one among them while speaking. As Okonko receives no support from his clansmen after that, he runs away and hangs himself in the bush. The action which Okonko done, he believed that he would receive some support from his clansmen, but they didn't. That showed that they were not ready to fight. That means Okonko was overreacting. Okonko was short-tempered. Okonko was not doing things according to their thoughts, or maybe as they were thinking. After his death, we learn that Okonko dies the very same kind death he ever not wished, as hanging himself is a grave sin and one cannot be buried by relatives as he has hanged himself. So, the same as his father was not buried, Okonko was not buried by his father, but by his relatives. And just like his father, Okonko died, leaving nothing to his family. Just like his father, he died such a shameful death. Mr. Smith, who was now the leader of the missionaries, who was writing a book titled The Pacification of the Primitive Tribes of the Lower Nigeria, was very happy for Okonko's death, as he got the chance to understand African culture in addition. So we learned that this book, at most, the major conflict was between the traditionalists and the newly imposed customs brought by the whites. The rising action in this story can be seen when Enoch unmasked a gugu, and when the gugu went and burned the church. That's where the rising action marked its flag. The climax of this story, it is when Okonko murdered Oruchu, one of cult messengers. That's where we think what will be the turning point of the story. And the firing action, it is when the villagers allows the government's messengers to escape, and Okonko, realizing that the weaknesses of his clan people may lead him to be alone on the answering of something he has done, so he go and commits suicide. Maybe as we save time, let's talk about themes, styles, and techniques, and maybe also the relationship between the title and what is found inside the book. Things fall apart means things are no more in control. So yes, we can see in the book things are losing control. You can see Africans are continuing getting lost. Africans are continuing getting lost in disunity, getting lost into newly imposed cultural practices, as Christianity is brought between them and is distracting them. When coming to the themes portrayed in the story includes struggle between change and tradition. As you can see, while Okonko fights for his cultural and traditional practices, the whites fight to end those cultural practices. The second theme, it is varying interpretation of masculinity. While clansmen regard manliness as being able to take any of expensive prestige, indicating title, and the one who fails is being called the Agbala, the other name of woman. Okonko, on the other side, interprets masculinity either way, as he associates masculinity with aggression and feels that anger is the only emotion that a man shall display. The third theme which can be seen is generational divide. As you can see, Okonko is quite different to Onoka, who is his father, and again Okonko's son, that is Noe, is very different to his father, Okonko. While Okonko is such a hard worker and a person or a man of war, his father never prioritized or never loved war, and he was not a hard worker, but he has beared a son like Okonko, who was such a hardworking person and a great wrestler. The other theme, it is pride. Okonko's weakness is pride, though he has got some, but fear to lose it come to kill him at the end. The other themes may include death. As you can see, death is being discussed in very different ways. There are some who, after dying, they are being buried with Hana, and others are left. As Okonko died such death which did not deserve Hana, while the chief orator of the clan, while died, received all the respect due. The other theme, it is drum language. You can see in the book, drum is used to transfer some messages. When there is death, there is some kind of a drum which is beaten. When there is a meeting, there is some kind of drum which is beaten. And when there is a ceremony, there is the other kind of drum beating which can be heard. The other theme, it is African culture. This may take up the other mentioned themes, of course, but it would not be fair if I would not mention this. We can see in the book there is African marriages where payment of bride price is included. There is polygamism. As you can see, people marrying more than one wife. You can see African attire as people are dressing African dressing styles. You can see African food as people are eating cultural foods. My friend, until next time, I say bye-bye, and I request you to hit the subscribe button. Thank you.